We're going to get some rare truth here from Newt Gingrich on Fox and Friends. Look at who he blames for the rise of Trump.
Well, they are uncomfortable with Trump, the GOP establishment. You talk to the GOP establishment. I mean, you're part of it for the most part. This is their nightmare scenario. What are they trying to do?
Oh, I think they live in a fantasy land right now. Donald Trump is tapping into something in the country that's real. And if you take Trump's vote and Cruz's vote and Carson's vote, the three outsiders, they are once again at about 62% in South Carolina, and they have been consistently above 60% everywhere in the country. If you pull together all of the insurgents, and there's a message there. People believe the country's decaying. They believe Washington is the heart of that decay. They want somebody who's going to kick over the table and change Washington. Yeah. That's why Cruz has done so well, and it's why Trump has done so well.
What's interesting is I remember Mitt Romney, one of his great advantages was money, and that's why a lot of you guys couldn't keep up. This time, the billionaire is spending the least amount of money and running away with this thing.
Well,
it's going to make
that's because of you guys.
What?
Look, that's because of you guys. Donald Trump gets up in the morning, tweets to the entire planet at no cost, picks up the phone, calls you, has a great conversation for about 8 minutes, which would have cost him a ton in commercial money. And meanwhile, his opponents are all out there trying to raise the money to run an ad.
Well, I mean, people
Nobody
make decisions. Dude, people make decisions. Mitt Romney made a decision. For 3 months, he wouldn't do us at all. I mean, people decide for a while. Jeb Bush wouldn't hop on any television at all. Hillary Clinton didn't do anything in the beginning. Donald Trump, from day one, made himself available to big and small.
Plus, he's invented scenarios where suddenly he's got all this free media, and people, that Pope thing at the end of the week, who wasn't talking about that?
Look, you could say that Trump is the candidate Fox and Friends invented. He was on your show, I think, more than any other show.
Every Monday.
It was always a happy, positive conversation.
Yep.
He just kept going around the country, and this is one of his great advantages. He loves what he's currently doing. And he is having a ball. That gives him more energy. And the fact that he can get on his plane to go back home, to get up in the morning, get back on his plane, a pretty comfortable life for a presidential candidate.
That's actually a fair point. I mean, the media shows him endlessly. Fox and Friends kind of got it kicked off that he called in once a week and had a conversation with them, and they would just give him free press. Like Newt was saying there, he's got so many people following him on Twitter, and he just tweets all day long, and it's like watching a reality show. And can you imagine what it would be like if they showed Bernie that much? If they showed Bernie Sanders that much, Bernie Sanders would be leading in a landslide right now. But they show Trump that much. And then what's even more important than that, though, is it's not like they show him and then they're giving detailed, factual, substantive breakdowns of what he said and why it's not true or it's a crazy policy. They play him and it's virtually unrebutted. I mean, every once in a while, have them say, well, that one goes a little too far. Tisk, tisk. But, I mean, he pulls the spectrum way to the right on so many issues, and then the only rebuttal he gets every once in a while on, like, 10% of the issues is, you went a little too far on that one. So people are hearing it, and they're just going to go, okay, you're showing me this guy 24/7. He's over-the-top confident. He pretends like he's anti-establishment. You're not rebutting these facts, because they're not facts. So I guess I'm with him. I mean, what am I going to do? He's portraying himself as for the little guy. He's on TV all the time. He's in my face. I guess I'm gonna go for him. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a personal responsibility angle to this as well, and the voters are getting duped over, and they're not doing their own fact-checking. But the job of the media is to fact-check, and they're not. They're just showing him to get ratings. So think about it, man. Here's a guy who said, let's ban all Muslims from entering the U.S. temporarily. I love how that's his idea of, like, moderating out that comment. Like, I'm going to be moderate here. Not a permanent ban on all Muslims from entering the U.S. A temporary ban until we figure out what's going on. Now, where was the media saying, okay, that's unconstitutional, that's illegal, let's go through this here, why this is a problem? You're literally blaming all Muslims for the actions of ISIS. I mean, what? Ahmadi Muslims got nothing to do with ISIS. Shia Muslims got nothing to do with ISIS. The list goes on and on. Sufi Muslims, they got nothing to do with jihad, ISIS, anything like that. So there's no breakdown, there's no pushback. Torture, here's a guy who said we should torture, quote, even if it doesn't work. Where were the talking heads screaming, oh my God, that's crazy. You're advocating war crimes on live TV, you maniac. Who can vote for this guy? Are you kidding me? Where was it? Where was it? It was nowhere to be found. He said we should kill civilians in the Middle East. He said we should go after the families of ISIS. Unbelievable with the media that did their fucking job. That'd be wall-to-wall coverage, the biggest scandal in the country, but just it went right by. The only people covering it, progressive media like myself, some new media figures. Mainstream media, nowhere to be found. The dude called Mexicans rapists. I assume some of them are good people. So what's the takeaway from that? The majority are rapists? Is that the argument you're making? They're rapists. I assume some are good people, these illegals. Very little pushback or very policy-oriented substantive pushback, wall-to-wall coverage, none of that stuff. And the white supremacist nonsense. He retweets white supremacists. The biggest pushback he got from that was actually Bill O'Reilly. How pathetic is that? When the right-wing douchebag does more fact-checking and holds feet to the fire more than anybody else, the other more respectable, allegedly, media organizations like CNN. No, there's no, I mean, it's a joke. Again, if you showed Bernie Sanders this much, he'd be leading by a lot because his message also has some innate appeal as opposed to just being a buffoon who's out there saying anything and everything. And then the last thing I want to mention here is Newt's also a little bit wrong. So he's right, generally speaking. Fox and Friends kind of created this. The media in general kind of created this environment where Trump is thriving. But it's also that the far right in general created him. Trump is playing into the same mindset that these guys have fostered over the years. And what I mean by that is the bigotry, the xenophobia, the anti-immigrant mentality, the anti-Muslim mentality. This is all stuff that's been brewing on Fox and Friends and on Fox News and on the far right. And this is something that, Trump just takes it and actually goes to its logical conclusion. So, they try to be more subtle with it on Fox News and in far-right circles, but Trump goes out there, he's like, yeah, fuck the subtlety. They're rapists. Kick out all 11 million illegals. Ban all Muslims from entering the U.S. And then because you set up this environment, now people are going, yeah, finally somebody who keeps it real. And they think it really is keeping it real because of the environment you created. When, of course, it's not keeping it real. It's crazy policy positions. So, you got to blame the far right in general for this. You got to blame the establishment Republicans for being so shitty at what they do that an insurgent like this guy can take over. And you got to blame the media. All of that is to blame for Trump.